going to be a bumpy walk.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell at before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what, Chrissie, to say I dabbled in stand-up is something. I haven't been disrespectful to you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Oh, welcome back to the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can hear us everywhere. Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch even. For some reason, I'm still on Twitch. Before I bring on our fabulous guest to talk about her fabulous new book, I have a couple of dates to remind you of. I am a stand-up comedian as well as an incredible podcaster. Guys, I'm going to be in Texas in a couple of weeks. I'll be headlining in Austin Wednesday, August 9th at Roscoe's Comedy Club. We just added this show, 10 o'clock. Come on out. Lila Hart will be featuring for me. Plus, earlier that day, I'll be on InfoWars. I'll be on Drinkin' Bros. So making the rounds in Austin. Then I've got Anime Matsuri, August 10th through the 13th in Houston. Simpcast will be at this convention. Panels, booths, cosplays, autographs, hugs galore going down at Anime Matsuri. So I can't wait to see you guys there. And I'm headlining in Houston that weekend, Friday, August 11th at the Secret Group. Tickets are going for this show. So if you know you're going to be at this convention, get your tickets now. Don't be sold out. Don't be sold out and have nothing to do. Lila Hart will be featuring at this show as well. Then I'm back in Long Island in the fall, Friday, October 27th, and Saturday, October 28th. I'll be back at the Brokerage Comedy Club out in Long Island. Very exciting. And then got more dates coming up. I'll be in Tampa, Florida. I think we just added a Sunday, December 3rd show over there at Side Splitters. And then I'll be in San Diego March 1st and 2nd back at the Mic Drop Comedy Club. Little California trip in March. Maybe we'll have something in Vegas. We're working, guys. And as always, if you'd like to see me at a venue near you, tweet at the venue, tweet at me, call them, email them. If you know of somebody with a venue, like I'll perform anywhere, an auditorium, an Elks Lodge, a nursing home. I'm not too good for anything. So excited to get back on the road, doing more stand-up and meeting you guys, etc. Okay. Without further ado, our guest for this evening, she is a prolific author. She makes people think. She makes people laugh. She makes people money. She's a recovering investment banker. She's an author. She's an advocate for big hair, which might be the most important thing of all. Big hair, small business. She's here to promote her latest book, You Will Own Nothing, Your War with the New Financial World Order and How to Fight Back. Welcome back to the show, Carol Roth, looking fabulous.
Well, thank you. I had to advocate for big hair today. And I will tell you, Chrissie, I do have standards, so I will not go just anywhere. And you made the cut on that amazingly. So
really, I can imagine. Yeah, your DMs are probably full of interview requests and dick pics. And
I don't open my DMs. That's how I get around all of this. I just shut it down and say, don't contact me.
Very smart. I tell myself that, and then curiosity killed the cat. I'm like, I have to see the dick pics. I have to see what they look like. Yeah, Carol, you look amazing. I'm loving your new book. I feel like every time I turn around, you're popping out a new book. It's just, you're a very impressive lady. Tell me what your previous two books, Entrepreneur Equation and The War on Small Businesses. How do you feel like those two books sort of prepared you or inspired you for this book? Or do you just feel like it's just the world we're living in that inspired this book?
So I think there's a common theme through everything that I do, which is advocating for the little guy, whether it's the small business owner and the entrepreneur, or the middle class and working class American. That's really where my heart is. I come from a blue collar family. My dad was an electrician. I had the huge privilege of being able to seize the American dream, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And as I see that slipping away for other people, it just pisses me off. And when I get pissed off about things, like normal people like punch a wall and I like write 100,000 words like a jerk. But I do feel like when we empower people with knowledge as well as a roadmap to fight back, it just, it kind of creates a movement here. So that was kind of what happened with You Will Own Nothing. I hear this ridiculous meme going around social media many years ago. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy, from the World Economic Forum. And, the first thing that occurs to me is, okay, this is a group with the political and business elite. Like, there's no way that they're advocating for the end of private property. It must be one of those things that Twitter got out of context again. And when I tell you it took very little research to find out, no, that's exactly what they were saying. In fact, you could go to their Twitter stream right now and find the video. Is still up there. That number one prediction for 2030 and their top 8, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. And there's just so much kind of tied into that. But for me, as somebody who advocates for wealth creation and seizing the American dream, I know that wealth comes from ownership. And so you have to own assets that have the opportunity to retain their value or hopefully increase in value. So if you're saying that you're going to own nothing, it also means that you're going to be poor. And if history predicts anything, you're going to be unfree, unhappy, and possibly dead.
Yes, and it's very much pitched to us like we want to unburden you. Everyone's got too much stuff. Don't you want to be a minimalist? Don't you want to have a chic one room New York City apartment with only the necessities? You don't want to get bogged down with with dogs and kids and items. Don't you want to travel the world with just a backpack on your back and flying? They definitely glamorize. I've seen it happen, the way that they've tried to glamorize never having kids or never getting married. I think this owning nothing is the latest kind of cultural psyop that they're going to pretend that it's good for us. But of course, anything that is pushed by your government or the World Economic Forum is not going to be, they don't care about helping the regular people.
I've got so much to unpack with that. So let's just start with the first part, and then we can talk about the caring about the regular people part. But the first part is the you'll own nothing and you'll be happy part. I mean, first, notice the language. It's not will own nothing. It's you'll own nothing. They aren't including themselves in that prediction somehow. It's so, they're fine with their mansions and their private jets. You should do this.
I'll keep owning things. I'm going to keep my house, my properties. Right. I'm not involved in this plan.
I got my gold stockpile here, but you should totally own nothing. It's going to be good. And like you said, they're doing that psyop. They're trying to make you be happy with this. And my philosophy, is that as the global financial stakes are changing and these people who are elite and wealthy and well-connected, they want to hang on to their power and they're sort of not sure, how things are going to shift. So they're just doing everything they can to try to stay on top. And if your freedoms and your ownership goes by the wayside, like, so be it, just more for them. And if you buy into it, if they don't have to force this on you, if there's no bloodshed, it's not like when you go to war and you conquer somebody else's land and you go, you'll get nothing, you'll be happy about it. It's like, no, you'll be happy. It'll be great. So they sort of glamorize it, as you said, and get the buy-in, for their benefit. And then I think there's a defense mechanism, particularly with younger people, that they have, so much debt from these ridiculous college educations that aren't generating a return on investment. And we've got the government as the largest predatory lender, basically just wholesale transferring wealth from very young people to colleges and the administrators, plus things like housing, the symbol of the American dream, becoming less affordable because of policy. And so if you're young and you don't think this is going to be in the cards for you. You know how we all, like when we're young, we have this bravado, and if something's not going to work out, we just sort of embrace it and sort of put up that shield so that we don't feel the rejection and we don't look like a failure. So it's much easier to say, oh, this isn't something I wanted anyway. I'm just gonna, be cool and run around and be the digital nomad. And I don't necessarily think that that's really what they want at their core. I just think it's a protection mechanism for young people.
Right, because when I graduated college, first of all, it was very much the only option. You have to go to college. Did I know what I wanted to major in? No, but I knew that I was very interested in the cute boys that were 17 and 18 that were running around Fairfield University. I was like, okay,
Oh, you majored in that too.
everyone looks good in a white hat. This campus looks like a golf course. I see many hookups in my future, parties. Still have no idea what I want to major in. You'll figure it out. Just go into debt, spend your parents' money. I remember at one point my mom was like, "Yeah, my entire salary is going towards your college education." Like, and I should have felt guiltier, I think, at the time, but I was a kid still and only had one job. Like, you're not used to paying bills yet. And you graduate with all this debt when really the thing to do, and you're in zero position to start any kind of a business because you need some money saved up and some time to start any kind of business. So you're already in debt.
And,
You already
wait,
go,
and maybe some experience might help as
yes,
well,
of
right?
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, of course you need experience. But you're already starting out in life as an adult, like way behind the eight ball. Like, I gotta get a job quick and start chipping away at this debt and to make this degree worthwhile.
And I can tell you, I mean, it can make sense. I mean, I did the same thing. I had a little bit more of a focus. I wanted to do business. I don't know what that meant, but I liked business. And my father, very financially savvy, even though he didn't have the formal education, was like, okay, we in this family don't take on debt. So if you're going to take this out, like, you have to pay it off really quickly. And so that was the deal that I went in with. And I graduated in 1995 with $40,000 in college debt, which is basically the median amount that kids have today. But, that was many, many years ago. So on an inflation adjusted basis, a very different amount. And what I did is I went into complete austerity. I lived in this tiny little apartment, studio apartment. I had a cardboard box as my bedside table. I had a sheet over it, and I just plugged away and paid down every penny, and I paid it down in a year and a half.
Wow.
And then I went into this industry where I learned about return on investment more formally. And when companies look at sort of a payback period for an investment, usually that's 3 to 5 years. Maybe for something that's going to really pay off big time, you could go out 7, but that's the max. So for kids, you should be able to pay down that debt in 3 to 5 years and have a huge boost, and then immediately be able to take whatever you're using to pay down the debt and start to invest in things like a home or other investments. And now we have people who are saddled with this debt. They're barely like paying any of it down. The interest is compounding on them, and they have this into the time that they get into their 30s and 40s and 50s, and some people are never going to pay it down.
It's easy for millennials to just blame everything on boomers, or it was easier to buy. It's easier for the boomers overall, get a job, keep that job their whole life, buy a house in their 20s. Mom didn't have to go to work if she didn't have to. Is that just like a sort of millennial coping mechanism?
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, there are certainly some nuanced factors, but there are two things, that are impacting. You have this Fed policy basically that gave Wall Street a bunch of cheap money for a really long time, lots of it. They're coming in and they're competing with individuals to buy single family homes. They're driving up the price of the houses. And, they don't even have to look at the houses because they're not planning to live on it. They want to rent people the American dream. And you've got all these other local and federal and state laws that are making the houses themselves more unaffordable. So that, that is killing you from that side, is like, oh my God, this house that should be $200,000 is $400,000 or whatnot. And then you have this ridiculous debt that you've been saddled with because the government is the largest predatory lender, and they think a 17-year-old should be able to figure out return on investment, and have the colleges have no skin in the game and have no underwriting and no bankruptcy process. So they come out and their balance sheets are crushed. One of the crazy statistics that I got, Chrissie, out of researching this book is that millennials actually earn more on an inflation adjusted basis than the boomers or the Gen Xers did. It's because of this destruction of their balance sheet that, they may be earning a little bit more, but because they've got all the debt, that earning doesn't make up for that differential. So they are in a very different position. And so I feel very much for them. Plus, with all of the expansion of the government that benefits the boomers in terms of the entitlements and the promises, there has been even more, wealth transferred in terms of the destruction of our purchasing power, from the young people to the old people. So the boomers definitely have siphoned off wealth from the young. And I do think that empowering young people to understand why this is happening is critical, because they see the ailment, the symptoms, but they don't know what the ailment is, right? So they know that something's wrong, they can feel it, but they don't know how it started. And then they want policies that will actually make it worse. So trying to empower people to understand why this is happening is one of the ways we can possibly fight back against it.
So what is destroying the millennial balance sheet? Is it that we have more debt? Because if we're making more than
The
boomers,
college debt. It's the college debt. I
it's
mean,
their
think
college.
about
Holy
it's their
crap.
college. Yeah, it's their college debt. I mean, it is, people going into debt tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars for these, degrees that don't produce a return on investment. I mean, if you have a job that you get out of college that's producing $80,000 a year, let's say, I mean, you cannot take on more than $80,000 in debt. You should be able to be purchasing or paying that down in 3 to 5 years. So if in 3 to 5 years you're not making $80,000 a year, like you should just not be taking it down. But Duke costs, with tuition and room and board, like $80,000 a year. So it's like 4 times that. $320,000, like to get an $80,000 job, like you're never going to pay that off. Like, what are you doing with that?
Why does college cost so much now? And is part of the problem that when boomers were going to college, it just wasn't as expensive for them? Like, did boomers generally have any debt? I don't want to keep shitting on the boomers. It's just so easy, though.
So fewer of them went to college. And what happened in the interim is that the government nationalized student lending. So basically, they got out all the banks and they said, we are going to provide the loans. We're going to provide them to anyone, and we're not going to underwrite them. So normally, if you're going out to get a loan, there's some underwriting process, and they look at the risk of the person who's taking out the loans and what the potential return is, and they make an underwriting judgment about how much of a loan they're going to give and what kind of an interest rate. Here, if you have somebody who's like a straight A student who's going to MIT and they're going to study engineering, they can take out the same loan as the person is studying like underwater basket weaving plus dance, who's like a C student and doing this at like a, some party school. That, I mean, just for everyone, if you don't have an economics degree, like that fundamentally doesn't make any sense.
Because the underwater basket weaver is not going to be in a position to earn a job that will pay that back.
Not the same level of the engineering. So your degree that you're buying for underwater basket weaving, which, may be fine, should cost a lot less because you're getting a lot less value out of it than the engineering degree, right? I think that people understand that. But people seem to think that education is valuable at any price. And while in some senses it's priceless to educate yourself, if you're doing it for accreditation purposes, the purposes that you're trying to improve your lot in life, you have to evaluate it as an investment. And we don't have this conversation ever. And it's, horrible and it's racist and it's bad for women and whatever it is. But it's just, they want to avoid the discussion. So once the government got into college lending, they nationalized all the loans. Basically, the colleges went, oh, great. Now everybody who wants to can go to college and we don't have to do anything. We can just keep raising our prices because the government is going to keep giving them money. So basically, the government has now said, okay, kids, we're going to take your wealth and we're going to give it to these colleges. And the cost of colleges has exploded exponentially past inflation, GDP growth, and wage growth. It's somewhere, and I always get them backwards, so I'm going to say it's one or the other, but it's 5 times or 8 times wage growth and GDP. So I think it's 5 times GDP and 8 times wage growth that college has increased. So they have increased their costs, but they're not increasing the benefit that you get from them at the same time. They're literally just sucking up wealth from really young people, which is just entirely predatory, and the government's enabling that to happen. And it is just a horrible situation. This doesn't even get into the fact that college is becoming indoctrination camps and who the heck knows what it is that they're teaching. I'm just literally talking about the dollars and cents of the situation.
And since BLM, all of the amount of faculty that has been hired to these colleges whose only job is for DEI, ESG purposes, diversity officers, these useless positions.
Let's separate them. It's not the faculty, it's the administrators. It's the person who's running the DEI program and the person who's running the cultural this and the person who's doing this. So these are people who aren't focused on instruction. They're not focused on helping make sure that you get more skills and graduate and are able to earn a better wage. These are just bloating the administration of the college.
It's just office jobs. It's just more paper pushers. And it's okay.
Just some randos sitting behind a desk. I want to also address this this thing that you mentioned about the idea that these elite are doing what's best for us, because that's my favorite thing. I think it's hilarious, and you may remember this story from the book. But one of my favorite things that I put in the book is a reference to a vintage Twilight Zone episode.
I love that show.
And the episode was basically that these aliens landed on Earth one day, and the people of Earth were like, oh, why are the aliens here? This is weird. And the alien's like, no, don't worry. We've been watching you, which isn't creepy at all. And we have noticed that you have famines and you have wars, and that's terrible. We have technology that we've come up with on our planet, and we've eliminated all of that. So we want to come down here and help out our fellow, folks on a different planet. We want to help man manage through that, and just be here to help you out. So you got a little raised eyebrow situation going, that doesn't sound like that makes a lot of sense. So they put the alien through a lie detector test, and it passes that with flying colors. And they go, okay, well, maybe we'll try out some of this technology. And they start to try it out, and it starts to work, and things are getting better. Well, while they're doing that, someone from this CIA type of group stumbles into one of the manuals that the alien brought from their home country. And they start to try and crack the code. And the title of the manual is To Serve Man. And they go, well, that's what they said. They're here to help us out, to serve us. That sounds like a noble intention. That's great. So as things go along, the aliens say, hey, why don't you come up to our planet? You can check things out. And I went, oh, that's so fun. They go, they board the spaceship and they go to the other planet. So one of the CIA guys decides he's going to go on the next visit. And as he's boarding the spaceship, one of his colleagues has now cracked the code for the rest of the book. And she runs to the spaceship and she says, to serve man, it's a cookbook. So that's what I think of now every single time, Chrissy, when someone says that they're here to help you out, that they're just here to serve, man. They're just here to serve you. They just want to serve you.
This is like the Simpsons episode, where there was the book and they kept blowing off more and more dust. It was like, how to cook for humans. How to cook for 40 humans.
It's exactly it. So anytime these people who are wealthy and well connected and obviously super bored get together and they're talking about that they're doing this, for the children, for the good of humanity, the only thing that flashes in my mind is it's a cookbook.
For their children, like they're not changing course. They're not they're not donating their private jets. They're not having less kids. They're not downsizing their homes. They're not going to start renting instead. They're not going to sell their waterfront properties.
Will Own Nothing doesn't have the same ring as You'll Own Nothing.
Yes,
You know?
you. Not,
You.
don't worry about me.
You.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain. Just focus on you owning nothing.
And it's just right there in your face, and they're just so brazen about it. And then anytime you try to call them on it, it's like, oh, it's for your good. Oh, there's a climate emergency. We have to stop now. Okay, well, why did you fly your private jet? Oh, well, because I have to make sure to stop it. It's very important that I have it. I'm part of this elite group of people that, I appointed myself as very important because I'm married somebody wealthy and she has a private jet. Like it's just so.
I had to get there safely with my security because nothing can happen to me, but.
Yeah, my sister was in a metal band for a while, and they had a song called "Everyone's a Hypocrite." I just kind of feel like it's that over and over again. The people who rail against guns have private security. The people who warn you about the water level rising have oceanfront mansions. The people who tell you, that we're going to have to kill the cows. You go out and have nice steak dinners. It's just anything that they're saying. It's for you because they want you to comply and they want to control it so that they retain more wealth and power. They do not care. Here's one takeaway. So Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, one of the best investors of all times, don't like his politics, whatnot, but he's always said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. It's just a brilliant thing that applies to sort of everything. If they wanted it to make it easier for you to gain wealth or to have a better life, there are a lot of things they would do to remove barriers. It would be very easy. They would create incentives to do so. The incentives or disincentives that they're creating are exactly the opposite. So you know exactly their philosophy because this is just, straight incentive outcome.
And why is ownership so important? Because some people go, oh, well, you can own a car, but that depreciates in value over time. And where does someone start if they own nothing? It seems like a daunting process because no one's got like 400 or 500K sitting around to just buy a house.
No, it's not sitting under your mattress. Hanging around, you're not doing the good fellas, putting the cash pile, into the closet kind of thing. Yeah. So what you have to understand about ownership is that there's a difference between spending and investing, right? Spending on things that you consume that you may enjoy, which is, great. It's part of life. We have to do some of that. But that's different than making an investment into something where you have ownership and that asset will retain its value or increase in value. So I think that's the lens that you have to look through it. And I know that there is going to be some girl out there that's be like, well, I bought these G's and they're an investment because they make my butt look great. No, those are not an investment. Although sometimes purses can be. Birkin bags can sometimes be an investment, at least right now. But you have to kind of look at it. What am I spending on this? What's the purpose? And am I allocating some of the money that I'm, now using maybe for some frivolous spending to actually owning these things? Now, cars do depreciate in value, but they also provide you with a lot of freedom. And you have to not, in addition to sort of your freedom and coming and going at your whim, also look at what other options you have to depend on, because sometimes it may be just as pricey for you to go out and use public transportation or Uber or whatnot. But you may want to make a decision between buying a less expensive car than a more expensive car, and that's your trade-off. But things like homes, things like precious metals, things like stocks. And sometimes it's not even about purchasing it, it's about negotiating it. There are a lot of companies that when you work for them, they will offer you ownership in their company. They'll offer you stock options for working there. Some of that's for publicly traded companies. Some of that is for private companies. And so many people either don't ask about that because they don't think to ask about that, or they go, well, I could really use that, extra money today, not thinking that you want to have some ownership in this thing that you're working towards and you're building. So that can be an easy way to get some ownership. Or if your company offers a 401k matching program, that means that they're putting in money, along with you. That's like basically free money that's going to be tax deferred for a long period of time, hopefully for you as it continues to grow, and you put that into investments. So, those are some ways to kind of get started. And then just having discipline that, okay, where am I spending all my money? Am I having that, extra couple of cocktails in the bar that are super expensive? Maybe I'll just buy a bottle for home and I'll take that extra money each month. And maybe I'll invest in some silver, or I'll invest in a T-bill right now, which is paying 5 point whatever %.
What's a T-bill?
A T-bill is a government-backed security. So it's a treasury security. And the bills are the ones that are the shorter duration. So they have them in different durations of different amounts of months: 1 month, 3 month, 4 month, 6 month, 1 year, and 2 year. Once you're past that 2 years, then they become bonds. So, whatever reason, I don't know why the financial industry likes to make everything so super complicated. But, when you think about a treasury bond that is traded in the market, that's what we're talking about, which is different than those savings bonds, like those Series E bonds that your grandma might have gotten you if you're of a certain age, like for a birthday or something like that.
I'm just imagining like a bill with like really short arms, like a T-bill.
Or like a bill on Capitol Hill kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just a bill.
But it's the discipline. I know that it can be scary, especially for people who haven't thought about this before. But you want to be thinking about, like, what is it these wealthy people are doing that they don't want me to do, and definitely do everything that they don't want you to do, because that's what they're doing for themselves. So, in terms of home ownership, you may have to look outside your current home area if you're in a really expensive area to a place that's a little bit more affordable. But definitely think about that. Think about owning your home. It's usually the biggest asset on balance sheets across households. It's the way that households have driven wealth for generation. Corporations are trying to take that away from you. Like 1 in 5 houses now, as of the end of last year, were purchased by corporate buyers that want to rent you the American dream and take that legacy wealth creation away from you and your family. So do you want to give your rent to one of these Wall Street entities and have them make a lot of wealth and have their families go on ski trips to Aspen? Or do you want to build up that value in that asset? And it does mean that you're going to have to perhaps restructure your priorities. But I do think when people put on the lens of why they're doing it, it's important. And one thing that came up on a conversation, I think that may resonate with you, Chrissie, is when you think about social credit and you think about, how that's becoming more pervasive and more formalized, and the things and the access that's being limited to people who don't think the right way. Maybe you can't be on a social media platform. Maybe you can't use a payment platform. But the worry is, what happens if you're renting from one of these companies and then now all of a sudden you're kicked out of your house?
Yeah, we've seen it with Vrbo. We've seen it with Airbnb. Like Lauren Southern got banned from one of those, and then her mother couldn't rent an Airbnb. It's really scary. And I always hear Chase seems to be the biggest offender of the bank that is just, if they don't like you, or if you're an OnlyFans or an adult film star, sorry, they'll just unbank you.
I mean, I think I can't speak to, which companies are better or worse, but there's a risk with any of these companies. And so, if you think about that from a home scenario, like that becomes really, really frightening. And we know the collusion that goes on. So if you get banned from one, what's to say they're not going to go talk to all the other companies and kind of put a ban on together. There doesn't seem to be enough pushback against that. So I just think that there needs to be a different lens. And I know, Chrissy, that you potentially might be looking for a house. So maybe this gives you that extra push in terms of the way that you're going to approach that.
Oh yeah, I need to buy a house quickly before ESG kicks in, and then I will not be able to. They'll review my Twitter, and they'll be like, "Sorry, you don't qualify. You have to live in this Roach motel because of your tweet about fried chicken from a couple months ago."
Exactly.
Keith Olbermann signed off on it. Yes.
Keith Olbermann, he is our ESG ambassador, and
Overlord.
he makes all of the decisions. He likes to review the tweets and basically tell us. But actually, we don't even need Keith anymore because we have AI to do it now. We had AI train on Keith's brain, and Greta Thunberg's. We have her Twitter stream, so the AI trained on that, and the AI is now going to make the decision on that.
It's so scary. Like it's a very powerful way to force behavior, because you won't have essentially be able to have a roof over your head if you don't act and post and say the kind of things that the government wants you to say, or mostly not say.
Right. And we think about freedom a lot of times, but we don't always think about, economic freedom and, how important private property is to our individual rights and personal freedoms. And that's where, somebody who's focused through an economic lens, I think that's where I'm bringing sort of a different flavor through You Will Own Nothing, for you to kind of understand all these different forces and look at the financial implications and how that ties into your freedom. And then, of course, give the plan to fight back, because we want everyone to own everything possible, at least on the asset side. You don't have to own the tchotchkes. You don't have to own the tchotchkes.
And it seems like the backlash that Jason Aldean has been getting this week, he's like the country singer over his song called "Try This in a Small Town," which, if you listen to it or read the lyrics, it's all about communities protecting each other, and it does promote ownership, gun ownership, property ownership, and just community protection, which the powers that be all despise. They want you relying on them alone. But just seeing the campaign that's been going out against him this week, it's so quickly, if you're promoting any kind of ownership or community, how quickly that just gets called racist and they want to cancel you.
Well, and if you want to talk about what's truly racist, it's the government policy that has incentivized dependence on the government instead of independence and ownership. If we want to lift up the impoverished communities in the United States, regardless of the demographics, regardless of where they are in the United States, everyone should be able to be participating in the American dream. The way that you do that is you remove barriers to ownership, because that gives people something to work for. It gives them a sense of pride. It gives them actual wealth creation. And then the legacy effects are, when you own something, you take better care of it than when you're renting something. So if it's, your house, you're going to be inclined to fix it up and to mow the lawn. If you're renting, you're like, I'm going to be out of here in a couple of months anyway. You don't have that same pride. You don't have that skin in the game. And so that's what this is all about. We want people to have skin in the game. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for them. And those, benefits sort of reverberate throughout the communities. And so if the government, if they wanted you to be successful, whether you're a poor, middle class, or otherwise, they would remove these barriers. This is not rocket science at all. But the fact of the matter is they don't. They want to put up more barriers so that you're more dependent on them, so that they can have more power and wealth. And that's sick.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they promote and glamorize being single, not getting married. It's an old, crusty, be fun, fuck around. Why settle? You go, girl. Or like, don't trust no bitch. They're all gold diggers. Like there's propaganda on both sides working to keep men and women from getting married and building a future together. And a big part of that, is owning a home. How are you going to afford a home by yourself? Okay. While you're scrolling through Tinder, having a fuck boy summer. You know what I mean? You should be finding a nice girl and buying a house with them. And in
the
building
statistic.
your.
I mean, the statistics show that if you are married, that you are going to be wealthier, and obviously that just makes sense, right? You've got economies of scale because you're buying something for two people instead of just one person. But I know again, Mazel Tov to you. You're now part of this club. But I've been with my husband for almost 26 years. We've been married for almost 24 years. And why
Wow.
do they not put, other people who are successful in the media so that we can talk about relationships, which by the way are hard. And, I'm not saying that this isn't like something you have to work at, but there are so many benefits in terms of having a life partner that shares common values with you and that you can work on things together. And because I have my husband, it's allowed me to do things that are more entrepreneurial. We came up with this plan early on that I had that entrepreneurial streak. I opened my mouth in investment banking all the time. Maybe you shouldn't be in a corporate environment, Carol. I just don't know. Maybe you'd be better off by yourself. But
Uh-huh.
if I didn't have the husband who said, no, I'm going to be the lunch pail guy who, goes and does the corporate thing all the time, I might not have been as incentivized to take those risks. And so, as a unit, it gives you more flexibility. And it is unfortunate that the rhetoric is going in the other direction, but it is, the intention goes back to serve man. It's a cookbook. Think about why they're saying these things, and they're not hiding it anymore. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is not like you have to go and really dig in and read between the lines. They're just pretty much putting it out there for everyone. And the conspiracy has become reality right now.
What was your I guess process like, or research process like for this book?
So one of the things about me is that I do a ridiculous amount of, scrolling of information, whether it's through Twitter, various news channels, and my husband does as well. So he's sending me stuff. So I had a lot of stuff that was floating in my brain, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And so I'm thinking about social credit, and I'm thinking about CBDCs, and I'm thinking about ESG, and I'm thinking about how the currency has been debased, and I'm thinking about big tech and them renting your life back to you as a subscription or a service. And I'm thinking about the housing issues and millennial wealth and all the wealth that's set to turn over, all the government issues. And it's all this is just going around, just sloshing in my head. And I'm like, there's got to be a through line here. And when I tell you, it was divine intervention, somebody from above wanted me to write this book, because I was just walking and all of a sudden it just hit me. You will own nothing. And I'm like, that's it. That's the tie. So, there were kind of these general categories. And then once I had that, I was able to go and take the stuff that I knew and search for it. I remember hearing about Harvard buying, water rights, because that's when I, made up the thing about Harvard being a hedge fund with a university attached to it. And, I remember this thing and I remember that thing. And so I just started putting it down. And then as I dug into each topic, I'm also really good at just Googling, kind of knowing what it is that I'm looking for. And so putting in different combinations of words, and then it becomes like a rabbit hole, where you read one thing and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And that takes you to something else. So then I am one of those people, I write 3 times the size of the book, and then have to go back and cross it out and then send it to my editors. And then they're like, oh, there's still too much here. And I'm like, but it's so important. And they're like, no. And then I have to fight with them. So I'm definitely a more is more kind of person, and have to kind of cull it back from there to try to get the essence of what I'm talking about.
What are your thoughts on sort of and this is a very it's a very intimidating topic, because it's the idea of cryptocurrency, or basically the government or the new world order taking over crypto.
Right.
And what's the timeline on this? It's very daunting, because it's hard. I invested a little bit of money in Doge, and then and then Elon Musk went on SNL, it crashed, and I was like, that's it. I think I'm done. I'm too stupid to do crypto. But I think it is an important part of this owning nothing goal.
So crypto is interesting. And so I try to approach it from a neutral perspective, because I personally am not a crypto person. I'm old, so I like physical metals. I like things in form factors that you can touch. So I've got like my little metals here that I can put in my hands and go, ooh, okay, I could take it with me. I'm going to hide it here. I can run out the door and nobody can take it from me, without coming through my guns. So I like that. But the thesis behind crypto is basically the you will own nothing thesis, right? They don't believe that the governments and the central banks have anybody's best interest in mind except for their own. They've been derelict in their duties in terms of maintaining the stability of money. And so they're trying it, particularly like the Bitcoins of the world, they're trying to create something that can't be manipulated. Now, I'm not going to weigh in on that. I'm not a crypto expert, but I'm just telling you their basic thesis. And that makes sense because, again, we're trying to push back against the further centralization of power. The challenge is that you have the people who have this power, they have control over the money, and they don't want to give that up, because if you control the money, you control the people. So they're going, well, how is it that we're going to deal with these crypto dudes? And one of the ways that they're planning to deal with them is through something called the central bank digital currency. They want to take people's interest in crypto and they want to go, hey, well, I know you're interested in crypto, but don't trust those guys. You should trust the government because, we've done such a bang up job in keeping your money stable.
You are
should
crypto.
definitely, you should definitely, do it. Except it's the exact opposite, because the whole point of crypto is that it's decentralized. This is full centralization within the central bank and the government. So dollar or a coin, and there was a microchip in it. And every time you went to buy something, it was scanned. And then the Fed and the government, pulled up their screen. And I guess Keith Olbermann is there. And he's going, no, Chrissy, I'm sorry. You've had too many burgers. It's bad for the environment. I'm vegetarian. I like dogs. So you can't have it. And so that's what we're talking about is them basically having the ability to tie in this social credit, whether it's formal or informal, through the currency. And it may sound, again, kind of conspiratorial, but the New York Fed did a pilot program on what's called wholesale level, kind of bank-to-bank digital currency, which is different than the retail one that you would use. And they did that with a bunch of financial institutions, and they printed a paper recently. They said it was great. So, once they open that door, that's scary. And then the G7 came out with their principles for retail-facing CBDCs, the kind that we would transact with. So you don't do these things. You don't take these actions if this isn't something that you're seriously considering. So they want this, and they will probably use the carrot of, hey, people are totally financially illiterate. Do exactly what they did with the stimulus checks. With the stimulus checks, they go, hey, who wants $1,000 or $1,200? Oh, I love free money, me. That's now cost you, in terms of inflation, $7,000 to $10,000 a year for the rest of your life. They're going to do the same thing in terms of digital currency. Hey, what if you give me your dollar, I'll give you 100 digital dollars. And you're like, yes, I'm going to be a millionaire. This is great. Let's do it. Because people don't understand that, you can't just make up money out of nowhere. Money is a proxy for your productivity, for your work. So if there's been no increase in productivity and then you increase the money supply, then your productivity has just now been debased by at least the same proportion. I would argue probably more with compounding, but that's, that gets kind of wonky. So they're going to basically try to get people into the system and give them these carrots, whether it's UBI or, more digital dollars or whatnot, to be able to get people to go onto the system. And then the game is over for us, because if they can just shut off your money, whether they want to control inflation or they don't like you or whatnot, that's going to be a huge, huge issue. So people really need to be thinking about this and preparing. Do you have friends that you can barter with? Do you have some guns and ammo? Do you have some silver and gold, or maybe the crypto, to be able to transact during what could be a period of chaos? Because even if we're able to sort of overturn that long term, if it goes into effect at all, we know that that's going to end up being a shit show.
Wow. Yeah, I was hearing a little bit about Ripple Labs winning an SEC case over XRP cryptocurrency, but it could just be like a small win, although it was a bit of suppressed news. But apparently it's big in the crypto world and something that the crypto nerds are very excited about. But
Yes, the crypto nerds love it. God bless. We'll let somebody with that deep domain experience talk about that, because I like to stay focused on the stuff I know and try to keep my nose out of the stuff that I don't.
yeah.
Which is, by the way, unlike everybody else on on Twitter, because they just like to talk about whatever's going on that day as an expert. The people who were like the Ukrainian war experts
Oh,
one
yeah.
day are now like the central bank digital currency experts.
They're all the same experts. Yes, they're very multifaceted. The butthole surfer. I think hypocrites are hard to swallow. Thank you, butthole surfer.
Thank you.
Keith Olbermann's ugly puss is here. Chick-fil-A is chicken except on Sundays. Thank you, Keith Olbermann. James S. Renting your home from corporation plus 100 ESG. Owning your home minus 1,000 ESG. Paying Vanguard 10 basis points for a Treasury mutual fund plus 100 ESG. Buying treasuries from Treasury Direct minus 1,000 ESG.
I love it, James.
Ugh. It's so scary. Matthew Hammond, has Carol looked at the Eurodollar, where after World War II, banks in Europe started making fractional reserve loans in US dollars and the Fed lost control?
Yes, I know that. I'm not gonna. I think that's like a whole other discussion. That's been a big part of the de-dollarization discussion, and whether or not we can do it or we can't do it. Yes, yes, that is part of the conversation, and I think certainly part of the chaos in terms of why we've got this potential for a new financial world order going on, and why, frankly, the people who are wealthy and well connected are so nervous, because there's a reason why this is coming on now and not previously. If we weren't at a place where we had 125% debt to GDP and we didn't have issues going on in terms of the dollar on the international stage, I don't think that we would be having the same level of conversation that we're having now. We are much further towards that precipice of financial stakes changing.
When are you guessing? Like how if when, like I guess it's all about making moves, like beginning, just start to do something. And what's so great about this book, Carol, is it really is like it's an intro. It's like a one-on-one. It's not super dense. It's like easy to read. You don't have to like really know anything about finance or the Fed or anything like investing. Like you can just it's just a very good introduction, and it's very accessible.
Thank you very much. I wish I could tell you timing. One of the things that happens, in terms of the financial markets in particular, is that you can be right about trajectory, but if you're wrong on timing, you get crushed. So imagine if you're a short seller and you know that this stock is a fraud and you have to short it, but if it goes up like to 100 before it goes back down to 2, like you're going to end up getting crushed. And that's the challenging part here. Like this could take 12 months. It could take 12 years, it could take 50 years. And there are lots of different possible catalysts. One of the things I found is that in terms of actual shifts in the financial world order, while not every war brought around a new financial world order, every modern new financial world order has been brought about by war. So, depending on those catalysts, that could change and shift the timing. But I do think that, we'll probably have periods of chaos before we have a wholesale change, and that will disrupt the way of life as we know it. And we're already seeing the degradation. As we said, it's harder for young people to attain the American dream in the same way that people did before them. And it's getting harder, and our dollar and our currency is being debased more. So we're seeing these signposts. We can see that we're getting close, but like, when does that actually happen? Like, if I knew that, Chrissy, I would be sitting on a yacht in the Mediterranean right now and not sitting on your podcast having a lovely discussion with you. So I wish I could tell you timing. I wish I could time travel or talk to the dead or whatever it was and be able to tell you exactly when, but you should prepare now. And here's the good news, is that the financial advice in chapter 11 is good financial advice. Or am I in the Mediterranean?
We're
That's
on
very
we're on a
nice.
lake now.
I
See,
like it. Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
just put
Isn't
it. You
it?
just put it out in the universe, and then you
Doesn't
can
it
do
look
it.
like we're in Greece right now?
Yes, but what what I was saying is that diversification and taking these steps, like this is good financial advice for people regardless of the situation. Like this isn't something that you just have to do because of the situation. It's just a more urgent situation today. I think it gives you a new lens to look at things through, and gives you more intention in the way that you think about things. But it's good financial advice. If this takes 50 or 100 years and you peace out before then, it's still good financial advice that is going to help set you up for a good financial future.
Yeah, definitely don't panic, but it's good to start looking into. And you will own nothing at bookshop.org, of course, Amazon. Let's see where else.
Wherever your fine books are sold, you can get at Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. Although I've heard local Books a Million are telling people they're already sold out of it. I don't know.
Oh,
But yeah, wherever you like to get your books, if you can support a local bookstore and they have it, great. If you like to shop with the big guys, great. The most important thing is you empower yourself with the knowledge, you fight back, and pick up a copy for a friend or a colleague or a family member who needs to know this stuff. I mean, this is a movement. We need a movement against the elite who want us to own nothing. We have to own these assets that appreciate and value and build wealth and retain the American dream and make sure it's accessible to everybody.
yeah, it's all about protecting your wealth. And yeah, if you're starting thinking about like if you're worried about like your kids and what the world is going to be like for them, I mean that's a very scary thought, but it's just good to start arming yourself, and I think this book is just really good to have in your arsenal, and it's very accessible, this information.
Appreciate that.
Everybody get a book. Now I want to buy this book for friends. Maybe this will be in everybody's stocking this year.
I mean, it's one of those things that like it may sound funny, but it's valuable, right? Like this is a return on investment kind of book. This is not one where by the way, buy hard copies where you can. You've got the behavior of owning things, but the other thing, as we know, they're going in and they're changing the books. So unless
Yeah.
somebody crawls into your house and cuts out like the pages, like they can't change the words in your physical book, but Lord, they can change it, in terms of the audiobooks and the Kindle versions and whatnot. So if you want to know what I actually said and not what somebody else said, you may want to have a record of that.
Yes, if you buy this book in the audio version and you start to hear Klaus Schwab's voice, just know that is not the original version. That is not Carol.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. I promise you. Carol Roth says you will own nothing. It's supposed to be good for you. You will
What do you
like
mean?
it.
This is me, Carol. Can't you tell? How many have you eaten all your bugs? If you've eaten
I am here to serve man.
if you haven't eaten all your bugs today, please do so before proceeding to the next page.
It's on every page.
Yeah, yeah.
Please, if you own anything, sell it to Wall Street right now. Get it, make your life happy. You will be happy.
The title of the book is now "You Will Own Nothing But a Bug Farm."
Oh, Uncle Klaus, gotta love him.
Oh,
He is, by the way, talk about the most persistent motherfucker on the planet. This guy has been peddling this shit since 1971. That's when he came up with the idea. Yeah.
long?
The WEF's predecessor was called the European Management Forum. It started in 1971, and that's when he also came out with a book at the same time. It was kind of trying to help promote his book, and he came up with this quote unquote stakeholder idea, which you don't actually have any skin in the game, but you can just bully people by saying, "Oh, I'm a stakeholder." And he has been pushing this nonsense for over 50 years. So nuttier than a jar of peanut butter, but boy, is he persistent.
When was your first sign of like, oh wow, like I know he's been pushing this for like 50 years, but for you personally, like when did you start to know, oh, okay, this is the direction we're moving in? Was it like the pandemic? Was it
Yeah, it was probably a little bit before the pandemic. When I first came across the World Economic Forum, I was a useful idiot. I was in the business community. They had fun speakers that were coming and talking about things. I'm like, oh, the World Economic Forum, great ideas. Sounds fabulous. I'll go blog about it. I didn't know. And then you start seeing on Twitter these things coming around. And as I said, when I first saw them, I thought they were wrong. And then I did research. And again, it's not very much research. But what was interesting as I wrote this book, and the process of writing a book is that you write stuff and you source it, and then you go through edits, and then you have to check your footnotes, and it really sucks, by the way. It's just not a fun process. But things that I had sourced in the beginning, I would go back for the footnote, and they had disappeared it from the internet. So I had to use the Wayback Machine to go, did I make a mistake, or was this like just never there? And it was like, oh no, it was there. They just scrubbed it from. So
where was this, like World Economic Forum?
Yeah, several things from the World Economic Forum's website, which I point out in the book. And I was like, well, this was scrubbed, but I used the Wayback Machine. So thank you, Wayback Machine, although they don't archive everything. So that, but it's a really good resource overall. So very thankful and grateful for that. But yeah, it was really interesting to me to watch how, when things got bad press, or they didn't want people to know, or whatever happened, that it would just disappear. It never
the internet
existed.
is being changed in real time. Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy. So yeah, that's when I started doing the research. And then, as I, wrote the last book and this book, and started, really doing the deeper dive. And it's not fun. You could literally, there's so much stuff just on the World Economic Forum's website alone, which doesn't even get into the UN or some of these other groups, or, any of the other insane sort of fringe groups doing things like digital IDs or whatnot. But you could spend probably multiple years just going through that website and going, oh my God, what the heck is this? I did a lot of research, but, I would imagine I just scratched the surface, because some of the times, they have these reports, and each one of the reports is 50 plus pages. And so it's combing through to try to go, what is this insanity that they're talking about now? I mean, one of the things I did stumble into when I was looking at things like social credit was something called alternative credit decisioning. And I actually haven't talked about this on any podcast, but basically, so this is another to serve man idea. They want to help the people in the poor countries, the underbanked, right? I'm sure they really give a crap about them. And so instead of making credit decisions based on sort of a typical credit score, they thought that they would include psychographic measures. So look at your Twitter feed, and look at your behavioral elements, and maybe track where you've been. And they have this listing of all these different things potentially that they wanted they could track to make decisions about you. And I also stumbled into a paper, which is not in the book, but the IMF talking about using personal data as currency. So there's really crazy, this is, we're scratching the surface here, and we're trying to cover our bases on a broad basis here, but Lord, it's just, you could spend a long time trying to go into it. So I took the research. I have more than 600 sources in here. So I did a lot of the research so that you guys don't have to do that. And you can just kind of to read the high level. And then if there's anything in particular you want to dig into or verify, because, don't trust me, go back and look at the sources and make sure that it's there for yourself, or use the Wayback Machine if it has been scrubbed between the time of publication and today. I think that's important. It's important to verify. We shouldn't just trust people blindly.
Don't trust me. I'm just a published author multiple times over with fabulous hair. What was that alternate
alternative credit score? Alternative credit decisioning, ACD, is sometimes called ACS for alternative credit scoring. But so ACD or ACS is, and you have a lot of the big consulting firms that are putting out stuff on this in conjunction with the World Economic Forum, but it's in the book. So you can go there, you can go to the source, you can look at some of the things that are associated with that. But yeah, crazy stuff. And just, again, for the people, to serve man.
I love it. What surprised you the most in researching and writing this?
So there are three things that are just come off the top of my head. One is that Jim Rickards, who's awesome, told me, and I verified by Vox.com, which obviously two people on very different sides of the aisle, that during Bretton Woods, when they were ironing out, the U.S. being the center of the global financial universe, that our Treasury Secretary was a Stalinist agent. And that basically Russia was in the room. They didn't sign the agreement, but their entire focus was just to crush the British Empire. So it wasn't like they were, hoping the U.S. would take over, but that was their plan, to get the British Empire to just have that final death blow. And that Harry Dexter White was a Stalinist agent. So that was crazy. The fact that there is $84.4 trillion set to turn over via inheritances in the next 23 years, and the implications around that was crazy. And the fact that before 2010, there wasn't any institutional capital in the single family home market, and that this insane thing that we're dealing with is really only 13 years old. Even being in the financial markets, I didn't have an appreciation for it. So those three things jump to the top of my mind. But and the Harvard buying up water rights, but I figured that out before I wrote the book. So.
Wow. So just like this trend of, like, say, a BlackRock, a Vanguard buying up all the single family houses or buying up buildings with the intent to have you rent them out. That's just the last 13 years.
Yes. And so they're not buying them directly in most cases. What they're doing is they're funding the companies that buy them. So, they're giving capital to a company like Tricon Residential or American Homes for Rent, and they're providing the capital, and those companies are the ones going out and doing the purchasing. But yeah, I mean, the fact that that's a very modern new thing is pretty staggering. So it's not even just like it accelerated. It came out of nowhere.
Not only they're blocking your path to wealth, but they're going to fuck with inheritance, so that just any chance of generational wealth.
And you know how they're going to do that, right? So they're already setting the stage. Is they're going to tell you that they're coming at, they want to just go after the billionaires, right? We just want the billionaires and the ultra wealthy. So, we think we should have bigger inheritance taxes and wealth taxes and unrealized capital gains taxes, which, if you think about that, it means something like, imagine your parents bought a home in the 1970s for $100,000. And today on Zillow, like, you look it up and it's worth $2 million. So Zillow says. Now your parents owe tax on $1.9 million, because that's a capital gain that is unrealized. And the government says that, you need to pay it. How would they possibly be able to do that without selling their home? They couldn't. So if you say that the billionaires should have this tax, you've now opened the door for them to eventually do it to you. And by the way, the billionaires have like trust attorneys and other attorneys and accounting folks and people, and they're probably the ones writing this anyway. And their money isn't enough to be able to sustain their needs. They need the bulk of the middle class's money via this, this inheritance that's going to pass down voluntarily if they don't get in the middle of it. So I'm super worried about that.
Oof. Wow. Very interesting. Very scary, but the more you know.
Da, 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 da. Hey.
Everyone follow Carol. Everyone buy this book. You will own nothing. Yes, Amazon. Where else did I say?
Bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, local bookstore. Pay Chrissie, maybe she'll buy one and send it to you.
Yeah. If I'm your friend, maybe I'll put one in your stocking. Yeah. Everyone check it out. It was an awesome book. Thank you so much, Carol, for coming on. Always a pleasure. Always great to talk to you. Hair is looking fabulous.
Thank you, my dear. Yes, sorry. I know this is probably not your usual fare, a little bit
wonkier,
but
I love this. I feel like I learned so much.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Mazel tov again. And now we're going to take you guys who are watching this, who are Chrissie's fans, you're going to have to hold her to this. You have to make sure she owns things. So this is going to be the new charge that we have to make sure that her and Frank get a house and they start building that equity and securing their American dream for their future.
I own a lot of crystals.
Stop buying crystals and start investing in a home. But anyway, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who's listening. Please, buy the book, Empower Yourself. They want you to own nothing. We want you to own everything. So go do it.
Yes. Thank you, chat, for your excellent comments and questions, and we will